Panksepp seeks the origins of consciousness, not in the cognitive processes of the evolutionarily new prefrontal cortex, but in the ancient regions of the brain, including the brainstem and the limbic system. This is why we intuit a sense of psychological connection with other mammals, whose brainstems and limbic systems are similar to our own, and also why we experience indications of consciousness in humans, who, because of brain developmental disorders, may have underdeveloped or even non-existent prefrontal cortices. Understandably then, Panksepp's theory of the self is informed by his belief that subcortical, not cortical brain areas, constitute the wellspring of consciousness. This expression, the wellspring of consciousness, was first used by Panksepp in his 1998 book, Social Affective Neuroscience, and later expounded upon by the South African neuroscientist Mark Solms in his 2020 book, The Hidden Spring. In Paanksepian philosophy, higher-order elements of consciousness, like the linguistic and cognitive, occur as neurochemical and neuroelectrical activity in lower brain areas interact with circuits in the prefrontal cortex. Panksepp acknowledges, as do most philosophers and lay people who are accustomed to doing much thinking about thinking, that there is no ultimate observer of the goings-on in consciousness. After all, who then is the observer, observing the observations of the observed observer? Ad infinitum. The self, to Panksepp, is a self-representational process, with ancient and deep-seated neurological correlates. The neural foundations of this process were present in the ancient reptilian and mammalian brains, and then continue to evolve upward through the higher regions of the brain, and with increasing complexity, throughout mammalio-human history. At first, this network was likely a stabilizing mechanism for motor activity, an equilibrium maintainer with presumably no self-referential capability, and gradually evolved to our experience of the self in consciousness. Panksepp puts it this way: the self first arises during early development from a coherently organized motor process in the midbrain, even though it surely comes to be represented in widely distributed ways through higher regions of the brain as a function of neural and psychological maturation. So while Panksepp acknowledges that there is no homunculus, or ultimate observer, of everything that's going on in the mind, there could be a motor action homunculus, from which more complex states of bodily awareness and self-referential perception arise. The process of observing emotions and perceptions in the mind, a concept called Cartesian theater, is the work of later evolutionary extrapolations of this same neural network. The more evolutionarily advanced forms of this neural substrate, as would be present in the human brain, create a complex network interconnecting with disparate areas of the brain associated with sensory perceptions and our experience of emotions. Panksepp sums it up this way: all higher monitors are entranced by a central process that itself does not observe, but exists in the very center of the Cartesian theater, as the primordial neurosymbolic representation of the core of each individual experience. What makes Panksepp's perspective so intriguingly different is that he seats the neural correlates of both consciousness and the self, not in the higher cognitive regions of the brain, but in our primal roots at the center of the brain. Panksepp specifically calls out the neuronally dense periaqueductal gray, PAG, as the wellspring of consciousness.